indecision is your vice. I can taste it on your lips, that sweet cherry red. Oh, 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 I tell me to stay away. You're dangerous at play and quick to turn.
Today on Soulversations, we have the Grammy-nominated songstress, Wayna. Wayna, producer, activist, actress. She's toured the globe with Icon Stevie Wonder with countless stages and projects under her belt. Well, you'll hear all about it as we get to the soul of some matters on the couch. But get your mind right for her performance of Holy Heathen. Ooh-wee. Wayna, she's up next. I'm Russell Taylor for Soulversations. Let's go. What's up, everybody? This is Russell Taylor, and on this episode of Soulversations, we have my friend, Wayna. Welcome to the Soulversation couch, my friend.
Thank you, Russ. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Okay, so where are you from, Wayna?
Originally, I'm from Ethiopia. I was born in Ethiopia, and I moved to Bethesda, Maryland when I was 3 years old with my mom. And we lived there for a few years and then moved to Aspen Hill, basically in and about Maryland is where I grew up.
DC connected.
Yes, just
Absolutely.
outside of DC, yeah.
How has DC influenced your art?
Oh man, I mean, I don't even know if I can articulate how much DC has influenced. I mean, first of all, the diversity here, all the different sounds, cultures. I mean, just immediately I was infused with music I had never heard before. I remember as a kid just hearing like English pop music was boom, the first thing that was like, wow, what is this? And then, I remember listening to my cousin's Jackson 5 records and, and of course my parents, my mom and her sister were always playing classic Ethiopian music. So there were all these sounds that were just swimming around my mind. And then even some of the older hits from like the 50s and 60s that my mom just happened to have. She was a big Elvis fan when she was a kid.
Really?
So, yeah.
Elvis?
Yep.
Wow.
He was big in Ethiopia, I think.
He was big everywhere.
Well, true.
But it's odd to hear about you.
Yeah,
Wow.
she talked about little paraphernalia that she had, like an Elvis pencil sharpener and stuff like that. So.
Okay, pencil.
Yeah, so I think all those things were there, and I think music was just a beautiful escape for me, as a kid. So I just relished it and dove in whenever I could.
Excuse me. My full name is Wayna. Wayne means wine. Ab means of the father. This is in the language of Ethiopia, Amharic. For short, you can call me Wayna, but I won't answer to that name. Slipping from the tongue, an identity undone, a label they call me in vain, mispronounced or minimized to abbreviate my pride, but I won't answer to that name, 'cause I'm here when fear tries to define me. My name, it reminds me I'm here. No, it isn't all the same. There's only one I'll ever claim. And I won't answer to that name. No, I won't answer to that name. They may squint and scrutinize the meaning eyes, but I know from where I came. But as long as I'm alive, I'll hold my head up high, and I'll live up to my name, 'cause I'm here when fear tries to define me. My name, it reminds me I'm here. No, it isn't all the same. There's only one I'll ever claim, and I won't answer won't answer. Oh, no, to that name. Problem solved.
So, and I can say I'm a DC connected artist as well. A lot of people don't know that, born and raised in Philadelphia. So when my parents moved to Maryland, all of my attention actually was to DC. And I know that for me, I've been influenced by even playing with the bands when I was coming up and practicing with the bands at DC. Because there's always a huge touch of church and a nice touch of go-go. So I wonder, have you had any experience with, as you have grown and played with the bands out of DC and putting your core together, have you experienced any of that?
Church and go-go. So when I went away to college, I went to University of North Carolina at Greensboro, and I played, I sang in the gospel choir there, University of North Carolina gospel
Wayna.
choir, yes. And so we were in the South, right? And you know, this was my first time kind of experiencing the Black church. I grew up in a Catholic church that was very buttoned up and everything was written.
I'm Roman Catholic too. So.
Okay. So, you know, when people were like clapping and screaming and shouting and praising, I was like, oh my God. Like I, you know, it was the first time I felt, you know, real emotion and just freedom and spirit, really. And so the musicians in the gospel choir were all self-taught and they all played by ear. And that was like a light bulb for me because I didn't even know that was possible, you know? So, you know, hearing, there was a feel that just wasn't in anything I had experienced musically before. It was just so alive and, you know, moment to moment. And, you know, people were catching the spirit and it was this vehicle that we were all riding. So that was transformative, you know, seeing that. And then also being given the permission to basically be a musician that played by ear and that was self-taught because that's who I am. I never studied music. I don't play, I wasn't taught how to play an instrument. I never studied singing. So, you know, this was really my, the open door. Like, you can do the same thing that these guys are doing. So I started tinkering around on the piano in our dorm room and taught myself a few chords and started writing songs. And that was my first experience doing that. And it was really from the choir and seeing how these musicians did the same thing and knowing that it was even possible. So that was really that entry. And then with go-go, I experienced go-go at University of Maryland. That was where I transferred shortly after going to UNC. And man, when I tell you there's just a fire in my belly that I feel every time I hear go-go. And I know there's a connection to Africa. I don't, if you ask me the musicology connection, I can't explain that. But there is something in my gut that it just feels like home. And
I'm with you. I feel go-go, to me, is just like gospel music. There's something when the dum 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 bum 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 ba-dum, it kicks in. I feel like I'm in a spiritual, soulful moment.
Yes.
That's what gospel and go-go, these things, like, they engage your soul. I actually really like that about the open door, where you said you felt like it gave you permission, singing with the gospel choir, that you know, this is a natural thing. We all have this proclivity, some of us more than others in this regard with music, but we all have this proclivity, and you have permission now to explore it. Like, that's dope. I like
and
that.
it's just as valid as a trained classical, you know, they're both.
Well, I know plenty of trained classical musicians that aren't even capable of telling the truth in their work. So who's to say which is better and who's trained or not? I don't know. There's something to say. I mean, I know you tell the truth in your work, that's for sure.
I try to. I mean, I have to. Yeah. Why do it otherwise?
That's the word.
You know?
That's the word.
Loving you is easy 'cause you're beautiful. Everything I do is out of loving you. Loving you the sun comes shining through. Every time we move, I'm more in love with you. La 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 la. Do 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 do. No one else can make me feel the colors that you bring. Stay with me while we grow old, and we will live each day in the springtime. Loving you, I see a sun come shining through, and every time that we move, I'm more in love with you. La 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 la. Do 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 do. In the quest to chase my dreams, soon I would see that it is not about me. It's about the story I tell. Long as my head don't swell, use me. In a biz where the kids watch on BET, these songs are like a moment of clarity. What it reveals to me when I'm on my knees and at my best of grappling with insecurity. Not for the glory, been done before me. And though this journey may wind up on VH1 celebrity reality for you, I've endured this 'cause I adore this. Me and more can't ignore this. You got the power over me, your ability to quiet fear with the simplest of harmonies. And evil cope and break yokes with dope notes spoken in the same time. Did easy a Hong Kong sound. So even though this may never get on the radio, music my first love, I just want you to know that loving you, I see a sun come shining through, and every time that we move, I'm more in love with you. La 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 la. I do 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 do. I hear you scheming all the while, believing that you've seen the best in me. But if you need a reason to believe this is my destiny, come step to me. Not afraid of others testing me. Realign my soul, now my Father won't stop blessing me. The rest of me, yeah, catching up to the best of me. The chemistry's a recipe for making history. Cause lyrically, I'll be Layla Ali. Molly meets Diana, meets a little Molly. Hardly an imitator since I found my sound. Feet on the ground, plus the whole country holding me down. But I don't count that. Everything to prove, and I'm about that. Regardless of rank, I'm dreaming bigger than tanks, bigger than skyscrapers, bigger than me with no spanks, bigger than anything I dreamed to be for my 2 baby girls. 40 hours in labor and no epidural. After that, what do I ever have to feel in this world? Not that, not this, not you, not me. Greatness is calling, and this time it's talking to me. Greatness is calling, and this time it's talking to you. Man, it's 2022, still singing, loving you. Soulversation season 2, Rush Taylor, come through. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la la la. I do 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 do, do 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 do. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la la. I do 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 do.
Okay, so Wayna, we have just come through and still on the tail end, like the comet tail of this terrible pandemic and the coronavirus and quarantine.
Yeah.
So how have you coped, black man to black woman, how have you coped, mom, wife, all these things during this time, and how have you negotiated that with your music and creative output?
Yeah, that's such a thoughtful question. You know, the pandemic, I feel a little guilty saying this, but it was good for me. Yeah, because it just basically forced me to Okay, so for women, for example, when we just like are feeling overwhelmed, if we just dump our purse out and we see all this crap that we're carrying around and we're like, why am I carrying this around? That's what the pandemic was for my life. It just dumped my life out on the table, and I looked at everything and I realized I am carrying way too much stuff. I'm holding on to things I don't need. Where's my self-care routine? What are my priorities? What kind of life do I want to live? Why am I working? What am I working for? You know, it was just a real reassessment of my priorities. I put myself on a self-care routine, and it really started with health. I changed my diet, I started exercising, I started doing affirmations and meditations, and just because I had more time first, right? And then one sort of good habit rolled into another, and before I knew it, you know, a year had gone by and I had been like working out every night. Like, wait, how did that happen? You know, I would have never foreseen that happening before the pandemic. I just didn't have the time.
And it forced you to make the time.
Yes.
You know, I have found, like with a lot of the musicians in our peer group, that all of us have kind of doubled down on taking care of ourselves with health and eating, because when we're so busy, particularly as independent artists, we're on the move. We're kind of how we feel is the last thing on the list.
Yeah.
So it's a common thing. I'm glad to hear that. And one other thing I know that you were doing is that you started to record again.
Yes,
You
I
started
did.
working on new music.
Yes. I discovered a fantastic producer named Chris Marcel, and he gave me some music that just really inspired me. He just got me as an artist, and we started writing together, and it started to feel fun and unexpected and just like an exploration. And you know, the stories were pouring out. You know, I had a lot to say, apparently.
I've heard some of these records, and I see an evolution in Wayna the artist that is very, very refreshing to me. That is not to say it's not everything before was beautiful too, but I see a new Wayna evolving, and I love it. I love it.
In some ways, growing up is such a blessing, because you stop being as self-conscious and you start being more willing to take risks, and that translates into all areas of your life, including your creativity. So whereas, you know, before I might have felt, I was just talking to Zamunda about this on my way over here. I was just saying how gone are the days when I used to put baby's breath in my hair and try to be a reincarnate of Minnie Riperton, you know. and even though she's still, you know, one of the core artistic influences to me, you know, it's like I'm in such a different headspace, you know. I feel like being rebellious right now. I feel like pushing the boundaries. I don't feel like being sweet so much anymore.
Or being someone else.
Well, that there you go. I mean, that's
Like,
cut.
Back to that permission thing. Like, you don't have to be someone else who's already proven him, or I'm speaking to myself too, him or herself.
Right.
You can just be who you are right now in this moment and telling these stories. That's that's big. I win it. Yeah, cut, like you said.
Yes, it is. And the truth really is that nobody can tell your story. So if you don't, nobody will. And you can't tell anybody else's story authentically. So that is really the point of this, right?
So when can we expect this new record?
It will be out in the spring of 2022.
Yay. Do you have a title yet?
Yes, it's the Housewives of Zamunda.
Housewives of Oh, you have
like
a
the
reality
pilot.
show, like a thing. Explain that to me. I want to know.
Yes.
I've seen it. It is really
So-
good and funny as hell too.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is when you become a parent, your entertainment choices change. I don't know if everyone else feels this, but I know I did. Whereas I used to really love watching deep analytical stuff, I just want to laugh and watch something silly or a mystery or a horror movie even. So that's what this project is. It's like an escape. It's just a fun celebration of our kookiness, our beauty, our bravery, but also laughing at ourselves and the things we struggle with and the things that drive us nuts. So, you know, my character in the pilot, her name is Layla, like Wayna, and she is, you know, similar to me. She's a mom who, you know, sacrificed her life for her kids, sacrificed her music career to become a mom. And she's very high and mighty about how wonderful of a mother she is and how important it is to be a mother. But secretly she's like raging and unfulfilled and frustrated and, you know, acting out in all kinds of goofy ways. So, you know, to me, that's like one example of a housewife who's from the continent, who's just a little kooky and nuts. So I wanted to just poke fun at us and have fun, and also see these women not only be parodies, but also go through their own journeys and come out the other end as a little bit more enlightened than they started.
And it's shot here in DC too,
yes, right? Everything's shot in DC. So we shot the pilot, and as I was shooting the pilot, I got super inspired with the music, and instead of these being characters that were telling their stories through these skits, they started to, you know, have songs. So I made up songs for each of the characters, and we're gonna release it in 2 parts. The first part will be in the spring, the second part will be in the fall.
Housewives of Zamunda.
Zamunda from Coming to America, for everyone who doesn't know.
Doesn't know the reference, right?
Yes.
So Wayna, where can we find the Housewives of Zamunda?
It'll be on all my socials, Wayna Music, Facebook, Instagram.
Wayna
Twitter.
Music, WAYNA Music.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this comes to the anchor question. What is your legacy? Year 2050, hanging out, you're speaking as if it is already so. What is Wayna's legacy?
My legacy is that I told stories about women who didn't have a microphone. I told their stories, and I told them authentically and gave them, empowered them through their stories being heard and validated and empathized with and understood, maybe for the first time.
You know, all of my musician friends, none of you let me down on that question. None of you let me down. It always revolves somehow, some way around service.
Yeah.
And you never let me down.
And you know why that is? Because this is not an easy line of work. You know this, right?
I do.
It looks beautiful and glamorous sometimes, but there's so much that goes into it that isn't. And if our purpose isn't pure, then we can't do it.
Not the right way.
Right.
And not in service. Well, I appreciate you being in service with us here on Soulversation on the couch.
Can I say how proud
Please.
I am of you? Because you really are just, talk about evolving. You really are just evolving as an artist. And now seeing your personality, I mean, I was just smitten by you when I met you as a fellow artist, but seeing your personality come to life in this production and in all the other ways that you're expressing yourself. It's just inspiring, and I'm just proud of you for being brave and for supporting us and doing what's in your heart.
Thank you, Wayna. You're going to make me cry. Thank you. And I love you, sweetheart. I love you. And thank you. You got to come back anytime, Soulversations. Okay. This is the place to be. It's my girl, Wayna. Look out for her new music, Housewives of Zamunda. Soulversations, let's go. I'm Russell Taylor. Come back and see us here. Just like that.
Seeing as their eyes wander round the sky, seeing as they're wandering for a sign, believing they will find the rationale that will defy their rational mind. Hearing as a voice whispers in the wind, hearing as an answer appears to them, preferring to be wanderers than followers who never look within. Holy heathen, wise men will start seeing, believing, even raised from the dead with a cross on his head, and it said they would look for the strings. But what is I believe? Never believed in nothing. A sheep with no herd, a sermon with no words, down to earth like a bird with no wings. Sing, holy heathen, wise men with no stars, sins believing even in the dark. Holy heathen, wise men with no stars, sins believing even in the dark. Hey! A contradiction, holier than them, but then you don't believe anything at all, at all, at all. Heathen, holy, 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 heathen.